Hello, I'm Pastor Eric Foley, and this is my wife, Dr. Hyun Sook-Foley, and we're the co-founders of Voice of the Martyrs in Korea, a partner ministry, Voice of the Martyrs here in Finland. We're here in Finland in order to give some information and a challenge to Finnish Christians regarding the situation in North Korea. I've been myself to Finland several times, but I'm so excited this time, Dr. Foley, to be able to have you with me because you are our coordinator for all of our field work. And so regularly, Dr. Foley is visiting areas that are simply too dangerous for anyone who is Caucasian or non-Korean in language or ethnicity to view. So she's seen things that few outsiders have seen. And so Dr. Foley, what I'd like to do is to challenge Finnish Christians to better understand the situation facing North Korean women today. Tell us about sex trafficking of North Korean women and how that impacts Christian faith.
North Korean talk about North Korean men in North Korea. They are useless because they obligated to work for government, but they don't get paid. So who covered the living expense has to be done by women. So women couldn't go out to the black market, they make money, and then they have to do anything to help family to survive. So many brokers who come to North Korean women inside of North Korea, they always suggest them, hey, would you want to make money for your family? And then they all say yes. Then they turn themselves to like a sex traffic person. Like they sell women to China. That's what happened. So all North Korean.
Yeah, these women are not aware that they're going to be selling their bodies.
Right. They expect to make money in China.
So these brokers come and they deceive the women. They say, oh, you can go to China. You can make big money to help your family.
Right.
And so what happens though? What happens to these women then when they say, yes, I want to help my family? So they go to China.
They go to China. They are sold right away to Chinese, Han Chinese husband who cannot get married with Han Chinese woman.
Because many of these Han Chinese men are older men or they're handicapped men. All of this because of China's one-child policy, where there end up being more men than women. So for North Korea, they look at that as a market, and that's how these women end up being deceived and kidnapped into China. They're sold to these men, and these men don't even speak Korean.
Right, so they are forced to speak Chinese, not Korean at all. So when I met several women's sex traffic to Han Chinese husband, they have not spoken Korean, their native language, for decades, like 15 years, 20 years. So when I talk to them, they just mumble, hard to speak their native language.
And when they first come to China, in most cases they don't know Chinese, so they have to learn, and a lot of times that's learning under the worst conditions of being beaten by their husbands, being abused by family members. So they're sold. They may have husbands and family back inside North Korea, but they're sold and they become the wife in some cases of more than one man.
Yeah, some cases Han Chinese husband, they once bought women and then they feel like they are useless. They sold them again to other Han Chinese. So several times North Korean woman gets sold.
So in this situation, the woman is unable to send money back to her family, which is of course the reason why she came in the first place.
Right.
But now she is a sex slave. How can Christ bring about any kind of hope in this situation? You know, some organizations focus on trying to help those women escape to South Korea. Is that a good idea?
No, I don't think that is a good idea, because this North Korean woman who was sold as sex slavery to China, they actually already had abandoned their family in North Korea. So their heart has a big hole, missing about them, guilt about abandoning them. They abandoned another family in China, going to Korea, South Korea, would not fix any problem in their life. So they abandoned several times their family.
So they're leaving behind in China. Sometimes they're leaving behind Han Chinese husbands, and then the children that they had with the Han Chinese husbands. And then when they come to South Korea, would they have a good life?
they don't have a good life because we have about suicide rate of North Korean defector in South Korea has about more than 16%.
So these women come to South Korea and they end up committing suicide because, as you say, they have this hole in their heart where they've left their North Korean family, not on purpose, but to try to help them. They've left now a Chinese family behind. So in this situation, how do Voice of the Martyrs in Finland and Korea help those women?
So this kind of women, we have to look at them from the perspective of God. God never sold this woman. God must have a reason for this woman. They look really pitiful, but we should not approach to them with a pity, out of pity. We have to help them to see why. What is the reason God brought them to where they are?
And so what's happening with Voice of the Martyrs in Finland and Korea is we're working together. Instead of trying to help these women to escape from China to South Korea and leave behind orphans and Han Chinese husbands then who don't want to have anything to do with Christians, and having North Korean women who end up in South Korea and end up dead from suicide. What we're working to do is, with underground Christians in North Korea and China, we're bringing the gospel to these women. And when they receive the gospel, they're not just receiving it, but they're also then sharing it with other women who are in the same situation.
Right. Once God is a hope. So once they get to know about God and evangelize, they know the gospel and they become to have a hope for their future. They get to realize what is the reason God brought them to where they are. So that is how we do it. And then I always encourage them to evangelize their Han Chinese husband, and then their disciple their children, Han Chinese, with the Han Chinese there's children. So we try to use them, become the purpose of God to accomplish evangelize all over the world.
So what's happening is these North Korean women were sex trafficked by brokers into China. The men who would normally beat them and use them, instead of saying to the women, hey, we're going to help you escape, what we do is we bring the gospel into that situation with the help of underground North Korean and Chinese Christians. We bring the gospel into that situation. The women are transformed. They transform their husbands and their children. So instead of a broken family now that's orphans and Han Chinese men and North Korean women in South Korea who have killed themselves, and broken families in North Korea, these women become beacons of light, and they actually then are become the foundation of house churches that are spreading the gospel not only in Northeast China, but these women are even then sending the gospel back into North Korea.
Right, they get to connect to their family somehow. In God's help, they share God with them. That is really great evidence.
I want to tell the story of one particular woman whose name is Esther. Can you tell us about Esther?
Okay, Esther, who was sold about 7 years ago, and then after she met us, she became to connect with her family in North Korea. But she always had in her mind her mom in North Korea, back in North Korea, always just being outside and just looking up to the sky and doing something. She didn't know what that was.
So when she was growing up, you're saying Esther would watch her mom, and her mom had strange behaviors, like looking up into the sky or sitting with her eyes closed. So Esther didn't know at that moment what was wrong. She just figured her mom was strange.
And then after she accepted Jesus by Voice of Martyr, she became to realize that was her mom was praying.
So her mom was actually an underground
believer.
Yeah. So when Esther, who was sex trafficked into China, realized this, she realized, oh, my mom actually already knows Jesus.
Right.
So what happened then?
So what happened was that she got reconnected with mom through broker. So she made a call to her mom, and then realized that her mom got kicked out to like 30 minutes away to countryside because her daughter got lost, and North Korean government kicked her out.
So even though Esther didn't want to be sex trafficked, when she was sex trafficked, the government punished her family.
Right.
Even though the government was responsible for her being sex trafficked, they kicked her family out to the countryside. And so her mom was living a difficult existence out in the countryside.
Right, but her mom was happier there because she met another underground believers in that village.
Yeah.
About 30 of them. Whenever they want to have a worship service, they go to the mountain and have a worship service. And another thing is Esther found out she has only one page of a Bible. One page. They share, turned off, and they shared all the page of the Bible. It's almost turned up. So she sent Voice of Martha Bibles back to North Korea, about 6 of them with another SD card.
So this is a good example of how God takes a situation that seems hopeless from a human standpoint, which is a woman being sex trafficked against her will, and he uses it for his glory. Because now Esther is one example of many women like this. Her husband has been evangelized, her children have been evangelized, she herself now knows the Lord, and in her case she found out that she actually came from a family where her mother was an underground believer and was participating in a church in North Korea, and Esther was used by God to send Bibles back to that underground church. Dr. Foley, only God can do that. That is what makes Voice of the Martyrs ministry so different than other organizations. Our goal isn't simply to try to help from a human standpoint to say, let's get this woman out of this tragedy of sex trafficking. It's really to say, how can we support underground Christians to do the ministry of reaching these people, because God has a greater plan. Well, it's all part of what it is that VOM Finland helps us to do in Korea with North Koreans. We do the balloon ministry where we send 40,000 Bibles, printed Bibles, and also Bibles on SD cards and USB devices by balloon from South Korea to North Korea. We do a 90-minute radio broadcast every night to underground believers and to people who don't know the Lord in North Korea. We also do missionary training programs inside of South Korea for North Koreans who have defected to South Korea. These women that we're talking about, who you've also heard their testimonies in our time in Finland, these women would normally, in some cases, have committed suicide or just lived hopeless lives. Now they're being sent out again to wherever North Koreans are found. That's not just North Korea, that's China, Russia, Mongolia, Southeast Asia. And in each of these countries we have discipleship bases where we're reaching out to women like Esther who have been sex trafficked, or North Korean workers who might be working in timber, they might be working in mines or in factories. We're reaching out to them with Bibles on SD cards. We're doing discipleship training, and through that, in all of those ways, God is doing something that's more powerful than what could happen if all we were trying to do is to solve human problems. We're not just trying to do missionary work to reach North Korean people. Instead, what we're doing is we're equipping underground North Korean believers and underground believers in China to be able to do that work. Even underground believers, I say underground believers in Russia, and that's really a good word for it, because in Russia at the moment, many of the evangelicals are struggling there with increasing restrictions from the government, and yet they're also helping us in this work. So we have Christian believers in all of these countries working together, but the only reason it works is because believers in Finland are also getting involved. How are they getting involved? They're getting involved through prayer. Knowledgeable prayer. We're sending prayer points, and Voice of the Martyrs in Finland is sharing those prayer points, that we're not just praying in general for North Korea, but we're praying in specific ways for specific people, specific projects. They're giving financially to support these projects. They're participating personally through volunteering and getting involved in the ministries of Voice of the Martyrs Finland. Dr. Foley, I think it's fair to say, without the believers in Finland, much of what we talked about today would not have happened, or would have been a lot slower in happening. So we're really thankful for what they're doing here in Finland.
I'm telling you, these Finland Christians who are helping, supporting what we do, you are make it possible to do all this work. Please, I want to give you thank you. Thank you,
Yes,
thank
we
you,
do.
thank you. And you guys make everything possible in the world, what happened to North Koreans.
But I want to challenge you too. You know, the most important part of the work isn't what we did yesterday or the stories that we're telling you now. It's the work that's yet to come. And people ask us all the time, well, is it dangerous in Korea? Is it dangerous in North Korea? The threat of war? And we always tell people the danger isn't the nuclear missiles or anything like that. That kind of political and propaganda always goes on in North Korea. North Korea always attempts to deceive people and terrorize people.
But what North Korea's government afraid of the most is gospel. That's
right.
what we are doing. That is the only weapon.
And that's why we say that the most important thing isn't worrying about the political situation, but it really is equipping ordinary North Korean believers simply to do the work of church that they've always done. And I think one of the things that's really exciting about Voice of the Martyrs in Finland, I know in Finland there's many organizations that get involved by helping out government projects that are in cooperation with the North Korean government. And what we would say is it's interesting that the North Korean underground believers that we talk to, they always tell us that that is not the best way to get involved. They have real concerns about projects that are designed simply to provide money and support and aid to the North Korean government.
But those kind of answers you can find out from North Korean defectors who came to South Korea. That's we funding for North Korean government is not the answer to open up North Korea.
Yeah. So we really are thankful for what you're doing through VO in Finland, and we want to encourage you and challenge you to continue. Get involved in every way you can, through prayer, through giving financially, through volunteering and participating. We're really thankful for what you're doing, and we ask you, continue to stand with underground North Korean believers. Remember them as though you were in chains with them, as it says in Hebrews 13:3. Okay.